Man finds a secret room while renovating his house. What he finds inside? It's incredible. Imagine buying an old house, ready to make it your own, peeling back layers of paint, knocking down walls, only to stumble upon a secret hidden right in the heart of your new home. That's exactly what happened to John, a middle-aged man with a passion for DIY and a knack for discovering the unexpected. He'd recently bought a charming, slightly run-down house in a quiet neighborhood. Built in the early 1900s, the place had character: creaky wooden floors, stained glass windows, and a history that whispered from every corner. John saw potential in each room, imagining cozy spaces for family gatherings, the smell of fresh paint blending with a sense of nostalgia that seemed woven into the walls. From the moment John stepped inside, he felt the house held more than just memories. It was as if each room was holding on to secrets, waiting to be revealed. And John was ready, hammer and crowbar in hand, determined to give the old place new life. The renovation started smoothly, stripping wallpaper, sanding down rough edges, fixing the odd leak. With each layer he peeled back, John felt he was uncovering the life stories of those who lived here before him. Welcome back to PlotTwister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. One chilly morning, as he was working near the staircase, John noticed something odd. Underneath a section of the stairs, just behind a loose wooden panel, there was a faint draft, cold and persistent, brushing against his hands as he worked. He stopped, staring at the wall beneath the steps, feeling an unexpected thrill. It was a wall. Yes, but it felt different, almost hollow, almost like it was hiding something. He tapped it a few times, listening to the empty sound that echoed back. At first he thought it was just an old gap in the insulation, but the feeling nagged at him, tugging at his curiosity. What could be hiding there? He'd heard stories of old houses hiding forgotten rooms, long-abandoned spaces that no one knew existed. Could it be? His heart raced a little. There in the quiet of his home, John felt the pulse of excitement he hadn't anticipated. Something was back there, something that hadn't seen light in years, and he was about to find out what it was. John dove headfirst into the renovations, eager to transform the old house into a place he could truly call home. Each day brought new tasks, from scraping away faded wallpaper to prying up cracked floorboards. He felt like an archaeologist in his own home, peeling back the layers of paint and dust, uncovering hints of the lives lived here before him. Every corner held traces of the past, small relics that hinted at a bygone era, a dusty, forgotten children's toy, old-fashioned nails embedded in the wood, even scraps of yellowed newspaper stuffed in the walls for insulation. Some days were smooth, others a challenge. The house, as charming as it was, had its fair share of quirks. A wobbly railing here, an uneven floor there. John found himself patching up holes in the wall, replacing loose boards, and figuring out the maze of outdated wiring that ran through the place like tangled vines. It was hard work, but he loved every second of it. Each fix felt like progress, a step closer to his vision of a warm, welcoming home. One day, as he was working near the staircase, John noticed something peculiar. The stairs themselves were in rough shape, creaking and groaning with every step, so he decided to reinforce them. As he worked, he found his attention drawn to a section of wall just under the staircase. It didn't look quite right. The wall was solid, but there was a slight gap between it and the stairs, almost like it was hiding something. Curious, he leaned in closer, running his hand along the edge. That's when he felt it again, that faint draft, colder than the rest of the house, slipping out from a tiny crack in the plaster. John paused, feeling a strange thrill. The draft was real, and it wasn't coming from outside. Something was behind that wall. He grabbed his flashlight, peering into the narrow gap, straining to see what lay beyond. The space behind the wall was dark, dusty, and just out of sight. His pulse quickened. It was as if the house itself was inviting him deeper, urging him to explore. He took a deep breath, bracing himself, knowing that whatever was back there, it had been waiting, untouched for a very long time. John couldn't shake the feeling that something was hidden behind that wall. The draft he'd felt was so cold, too real to be his imagination. So, with his curiosity burning, he decided to investigate further. Grabbing a small chisel and a hammer, he carefully chipped away at the plaster, each tap echoing through the quiet house. Dust floated up around him as he worked, settling in the shafts of light streaming from the nearby window. It was slow going at first, but the wall began to give way, revealing a small opening, just large enough to let a faint beam of light peek through. As he widened the hole, John's anticipation grew, peering through the gap. He could just make out the shape of a narrow, dark space beyond. He paused for a moment, letting his eyes adjust to the shadows. What he saw was strange. It looked like a small empty room wedged into the space under the stairs. A secret chamber that time had forgotten. The walls inside were rough and unfinished, and there was a musty smell, like the air had been sealed in there for decades. Heart-pounding, John pried away more of the wall, finally creating an opening big enough to step through. He hesitated, feeling the thrill of discovery mixed with a flicker of uncertainty, but his curiosity was too strong to resist. With a deep breath, he squeezed through the gap, flashlight in hand, and entered the hidden room. The space was cramped, barely large enough for him to stand in. Dust coated every surface, and the air felt thick and stale. As he scanned the room, his flashlight caught the glint of something metallic against one wall. Moving closer, he realized it was a small, old-fashioned safe. Its paint chipped and faded with age. The safe was covered in cobwebs, as if no one had touched it in years. Beside the safe, he spotted a stack of newspapers, yellowed and brittle, with dates that went back to the 1950s. They were piled haphazardly as if someone had tossed them there in a hurry. His mind raced with questions. Why would someone build a room and leave it hidden, untouched for so long? What secrets were locked away in that safe? John stood in the hidden room, his heart pounding in the silence. The air was thick with dust and the faint smell of something old, almost like mildew. It filled the small space. His flashlight swept across the cramped room, illuminating the rough concrete walls and casting eerie shadows that seemed to stretch and sway. The room was tiny, barely more than a few feet across, but it held a sense of mystery, and that made it feel almost boundless, as though it held decades of stories within its cold walls. He stepped further in, careful not to disturb the fragile stacks of newspapers beside the safe. The dates on the newspapers caught his eye again, all from the 1950s. He flipped through a few of the brittle pages, feeling a strange connection to the people who might have handled them long ago. The headlines spoke of a different world. Stories of politicians, movie stars, and events that had been headlines once, but were now faded memories. John's gaze returned to the safe, looming against the wall, covered in cobwebs and dust. It was sturdy and heavy-looking, with an old-fashioned dial lock on the front. He ran his fingers over its cold, rough surface, feeling the weight of the decades that had passed since anyone had touched it. The lock was firmly in place, and he couldn't see any easy way to open it. For a moment he considered leaving it, unsure of what he might find. But his curiosity was stronger than his caution. As he examined the room further, he noticed other oddities. There were strange trinkets on a small shelf, an old pocket watch, a tarnished locket, and a dusty box filled with coins from various countries. Each item seemed carefully placed, like someone had intentionally left them there, hidden away from prying eyes. He picked up the pocket watch, feeling its weight in his hand, and wondered about the person who had held it last. Every object in the room felt like a piece of a larger puzzle, a story waiting to be told. And at the center of it all was that locked safe, silent and unmoving, guarding its secrets. In the quiet of the hidden room, John felt a shiver run down his spine. Whatever was inside had been left there for a reason, a mystery locked away for half a century. John couldn't take his eyes off the safe. The heavy metal box seemed to hold the weight of the entire room's mystery within it, a silent guardian of secrets from long ago. He ran his fingers over the dial, trying to imagine who might have locked it and what they'd hidden away, just beyond his reach. The anticipation grew with each second, a steady thrum of excitement and suspense filling the hidden room. He knew he had to open it. There was no turning back now. After some effort and a bit of luck, John finally managed to break the lock open. The safe door creaked as he pulled it back, releasing a gust of stale air that smelled of time and memory. Inside, he saw a small, weathered box, its surface coated in dust, as though it hadn't seen light in decades. His hand shook slightly as he lifted it out, feeling the weight of its unknown contents. Setting the box carefully on the floor, John opened it, revealing a collection of items that took him by surprise. The first thing he saw was a bundle of cash, old bills that were crisp, yet slightly yellowed, preserved by the safe's airtight seal. Next to the cash was a small stack of rare coins, some gleaming silver, others a tarnished bronze. each with intricate engravings that hinted at their value. He picked up one of the coins, studying the details, feeling the smooth, cool metal against his fingertips. But there was more. Beneath the cash and coins, he found a handful of delicate jewelry, heirlooms that must have meant something to the original owner. A delicate gold necklace, a ring with a tiny diamond, and a brooch shaped like a rose, each piece tucked carefully away as if they were treasures meant for a special moment. And then, tucked into the very bottom of the box, was an envelope. It was faded, the edges frayed, with writing on the front in an old-fashioned script. John's heart raced as he picked it up, feeling the thin paper between his fingers. He could barely make out the words, but it looked like a letter, something personal, something meant to be read by someone who stumbled upon the secret room. In that quiet moment, surrounded by the echoes of the past, John realized he was holding not just objects, but a story, a piece of someone's life preserved in this hidden room, waiting to be uncovered. John sat in the dim light of the hidden room, holding the fragile envelope in his hands, feeling the weight of its contents pressing down on him. It was as if the entire room held its breath, waiting for him to discover the final piece of the puzzle. Carefully, he opened the envelope, pulling out a single sheet of paper covered in neat, flowing handwriting. The ink was faded, but still legible, each word penned with care and emotion. As he read the letter, John's heart tightened. The letter was from a man named William, who had once owned this very house decades ago. William wrote about his family, about the love and laughter that had once filled these walls. But he also spoke of hardship, times of struggle, when he feared losing everything. In the midst of it all, he'd decided to hide away the small fortune he had managed to save, the few valuable possessions he'd accumulated over the years. William's words were full of hope and sadness, a mix of gratitude for the life he'd lived and a wish for whoever found this hidden room. He described the cash and coins as a lifeline, a small treasure intended to help a future soul, someone in need, or someone who simply stumbled upon it while making life in the home he once cherished. The jewelry, he explained, belonged to his late wife, pieces he couldn't bear to part with, but wanted to pass on to someone who would appreciate their beauty. As John finished reading, he felt an overwhelming sense of connection to this man he'd never met. It was as if William's spirit had been waiting all these years for someone to find his words, his story and his legacy. John looked around the room, seeing it now not just a hidden space, but as a time capsule, a gift from one generation to another. Filled with gratitude and respect, John decided to honor William's memory. He kept a few small items as mementos and decided to donate the rare coins to a local museum, ensuring that the story of this room would live on. He walked out of the hidden room, closing the door gently behind him, feeling as if he'd just shared an intimate moment with history. The house was his, but now it also belonged to the memory of those who had come before, their stories woven forever into the walls. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.